It is the Resistance Report for June 5th, 2017. Let me remind you, first of all, we have a podcast of this you can download from iTunes or wherever you download podcasts. Secondly, let me also remind you that this is live, and you're live, I'm live. One of the greatest opportunities we have of being live and doing this live is you can ask questions. So please don't hesitate to ask. And third and finally, let me remind you that this is not a news program. This is a context program. That is, our goal here at the Resistance Report is to pull the threads together, to show you how various items of news are related to one another, to see the overall picture, what the theme is. And tonight's theme is a particularly difficult and serious one. And let me pose it as a question to you. What do you do about a president who is showing more and more signs of insanity? Let me explain. In just a few hours today, Donald Trump attacked Democrats. He tweeted, he called them obstructionists, all in capital letters with an exclamation point. He also attacked, once again, the mayor of London, whom he derided as, quote, pathetic, unquote. Now, this is the same mayor of London who he attacked over the weekend after the terrible tragedy in London, when the mayor of London called upon Londoners to basically stay calm and not particularly be alarmed because of all the police. Donald Trump attacked him, the mayor of London, for putatively saying Londoners should not be alarmed about the attack in London, which is not what the mayor of London at all did. But back to today, in just the same few hours after attacking again the mayor of London, Donald Trump attacked the United States judicial system, which he termed, quote, slow and political, exclamation point, unquote. Now, I want to remind you that when a president of the United States attacks the branch of government, the judicial branch of government, as being political, exclamation point, that undermines the public's faith in our court system. That itself is dangerous. But today, Donald Trump, again, we're talking only about a few hours today, he also attacked his own Department of Justice for, in his words, submitting a watered-down, politically correct measure to the Supreme Court. Now, what he did by that, what he's doing, I mean, he wants the Supreme Court to review Donald Trump's ban on travel into the United States from 7 mostly Muslim countries, actually 6 now, and you remember that he changed the terms of that ban. His lawyers changed those terms, so that ban, which he says is watered down, the new ban that is being now going up to the Supreme Court for review, assuming the court accepts it for review, that new ban doesn't exempt Christians from that travel ban. The reason that the courts have had so much trouble with the travel ban, both the original one and this new one, is because of the First Amendment. The First Amendment, let's go back here to the Constitution of the United States, which prohibits any measure that is an infringement on the free exercise of religion. So Donald Trump is saying that that measure that was submitted to the Supreme Court is a watered-down, politically correct measure. What Donald Trump does by saying that, watered down, politically correct, he undermines his own administration officials and lawyers who have been trying to make the case, the legal case, that Trump's ban is not a travel ban and that it is not an infringement with regard to the right of free exercise of religion. What did Trump tweet today? He said, quote, I am calling it what we need and what it is, a travel ban. And it was all in capital letters, travel ban, exclamation point, unquote. And then if this were not enough, given all of the chaos he has created today, he hunkered down even further and he canceled, without any notice, a scheduled briefing with reporters where he was expected to answer questions. Now, many people have said for a long time that Donald Trump has a personality condition, let's put it charitably, that is consistent with being a sociopath. That is, his world is made up of really only two sorts of people, or for that matter, nations. Strong winners, whom others respect and fear, or alternatively, weak losers, whom others exploit and laugh at. That is he. Now that fear of others demeaning us or him, laughing at us or him, is also very consistent with the personality of a sociopath. Now, for Trump, and again, this is not new, we've known this. I want to get to what's new today in a moment, but for Trump, cooperation is a sham, social insurance is a con. Billionaires can be trusted because they've already made their money, presumably by out-exploiting others. Dictators are admirable because they are respected and feared. But democratically elected prime ministers and presidents need to be shown who is boss. Their hands grabbed in white-knuckled embraces, contests of dominance, their bodies shoved aside. If they get out in front, you remember that's exactly what Donald Trump did. And treaties and compacts need to be renegotiated so there's no doubt that America wins this kind of zero-sum contest. It's the same at home. Political opponents must be humiliated. White House staffers, even White House staffers, demeaned. Even the vice president shown his place over and over again. The press consistently degraded, recalcitrant judges debased, others intimidated. This is all the pattern of a sociopath. This is not new. But what's new is Donald Trump beginning to become even more unhinged than he was. CNN's Gloria Borger last week quoted a Trump confidant describing Trump as a man who is losing it in these words, quote, "He now lives within himself, which is a dangerous place for Donald Trump to be. I see him emotionally withdrawing. He's gained weight. He doesn't have anybody whom he trusts," unquote. That's a Trump confidant saying that. Politico's Susan Glasser reported that in his trip to Europe, Donald Trump had assured his Secretary of State, his Defense Secretary, his National Security Advisor, he assured all of them that his speech to NATO would reaffirm the alliance's collective defense clause, that he would say America, of course, is reaffirming that Article 5 of NATO. But then Trump removed that language, the cornerstone of the NATO military alliance. At the last minute, he removed it, and he didn't tell his advisors that he was doing that. So what is happening to Donald Trump? How do you move from being a sociopath to really, actually, maybe, certainly showing signs of insanity? Is it that the FBI is closing in on Donald Trump? Is that what he fears, or is that what he sees? Is it that he's losing ground in polls, and the polls are showing him, even among Trump supporters, the strong people who are strongly behind him are going down in numbers? As Trump becomes more isolated, as he appears to become more paranoid, more fearful of looking weak, humiliated, of being laughed at, there is a problem, and it's your problem, and it's my problem, it's all of our problem. Now, Trump's ineffectiveness, I find something of a relief, quite frankly, but his isolation and growing paranoia is a problem. It could be quite dangerous. We know from Trump's history that whenever his back is to the wall, he becomes more aggressive. The further he falls, the more fragile his ego becomes. And the greater is the danger that he will do something desperate. I needn't remind you that Donald Trump is now the single most powerful person on the planet. with the ability to order the destruction of the world in just over 4 minutes. Now, I don't want to alarm you. Obviously, this is not about sending an alarm. It is, though, about stating something that I certainly have not stated as explicitly or felt as clearly as I have felt today when observing Donald Trump. And that is that it is necessary to get him out of the White House peacefully, legally, as quickly as possible. As the Washington Post's Dana Milbank says, there is much that a desperate commander-in-chief can do. Which is why I have come to the conclusion, not that it's important that I've come to the conclusion, but I just wanted to share it with you and invite you to examine it as well, that the 25th Amendment to the Constitution needs to be considered. Get out your handy-dandy Constitution. The 25th Amendment provides for the removal of a president who is, quote, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, unquote. Now, how is that done? Well, the determination is made by, according to the Constitution, the Vice President and a majority of either the Cabinet or of such other body as Congress may by law provide. It is coming to that point. If we have more days like this, if Donald Trump continues to become more and more isolated and showing more and more signs of paranoia and insanity, something dramatic must be done before it is too late. On that somber note, let me take your questions. John Bremer, what's the realistic chance that Vice President Mike Pence and Trump's cabinet would actually remove him under the 25th Amendment? All of them are there because of him. Aren't they loyal to him? Well, John, they are there because of him, and they are loyal to him, but they also have responsibilities to the United States. Quite frankly, I don't think that Mike Pence would mind becoming president. I don't think that most Republicans in Congress would mind Mike Pence becoming president. And I think also that the more that Trump's cabinet gets a close look at what he's doing, for example, the fact that he promised his major foreign policy cabinet that he would affirm NATO, the United States' commitment to NATO last week, and he didn't, and he took that part out of his speech, and he didn't tell them in advance. They may be getting very close. Maybe getting very close. Next question. Joe Haugen. I just watched your video on the president's plan to privatize infrastructure. I agreed with everything you said, but you said that the wealthy and corporations need to pay their fair share of taxes to have the money for the federal government to do the maintenance itself. I keep hearing people say fair share and wealthy, but who's wealthy and how much do you propose they pay? Well, Joe, right now, every dollar that is earned above around $420,000, I don't have it right in front of me, is subjected to the highest marginal income tax rate. That highest marginal income tax rate is close to 38%, but after all of the tax credits and tax deductions, it's much closer to 30%. Now, this is pretty low compared to what it was, say, in the 1950s, when the highest marginal tax rate was formally 91%, and even after deductions and tax credits, it was closer to 50%. So I think that if you are in that top, let's call it the top 1% or top 0.5%, those dollars above, say, for example, $400,000, I think there could be and should be a higher marginal tax in order to pay for everything that needs to be paid for. Next question. Barbara Levette, why can't we have universal health care in this country? What or who would it hurt? Barbara, that is going to be a larger and larger issue as two things happen. Number one, the costs of healthcare keep escalating, and they're now almost 1/5 of the entire economy of the United States. And secondly, the baby boomers become older and older, needing more health care, and the ratio between the working population and the baby boomers who are retired and needing more Medicare and Social Security keeps getting tighter and tighter. So there are fewer baby boomers there are fewer people in the working population, and there are more and more boomers who are in need of health care as well as Social Security. Something has to give. What has to give is the kind of absurd healthcare system we now have, based on private for-profit insurers. And pressure is already building for single payer, like almost every advanced industrial country has it. Betty Jones Nelson, what can be done to have the Senate activities around the healthcare bills be more transparent, given that Mitch McConnell, is not allowing hearings? Betty Jones Nelson, the only thing that is going to make them more transparent is if in 2018 the House is flipped, because I don't see Paul Ryan, who is in charge of the House Republicans, or Mitch McConnell, in charge of the Senate Republicans, wanting more transparency. In fact, if anything, they want to withhold more and more from the public. Time for 2 more questions. Eileen Duffy, what can we do at a local level to support our governor's efforts to combat those who want to disassemble environmental regulations that benefit us all? Well, Eileen, if you happen to be in a state like California that has very tough environmental regulations, you can and should make sure your elected representatives, including your state assembly and your state senators and the governor, know that you support what they are doing. They are going to have to go into battle and are already in the first skirmishes with the Trump administration. If you're in another state that has very good environmental regulations, do exactly the same thing. And if you are in a state that does not have strong environmental rules or regulations, push your state to do it, even in light of Trump's Energy Department and Environmental Protection Agency. Most of the action is still with the states. Last question, Christine Falit. How are you holding up? You mean, Christine, how am I holding up? How are you holding up? You're on the front lines every single day. Please let us know how you are. We care. Well, Christine, that's very nice of you. I'm holding up fine. I mean, first of all, I'm not in the front lines. I mean, I do this, and I do what I can, and you do, I'm sure, what you can. All of us are on the front line. And secondly, I've been at this for about 50 years, more than 50 years. I'm over 70 years old. I can't believe that. But what I've learned over the past half century is if you want to be a citizen activist seriously and take it seriously and be activist for many, many years, what you need to do is, number one, you need to pace yourself. You can't just do it all at once. You need to maintain those longer time horizons, and you need to make sure that you have downtime. And secondly, although this particular broadcast doesn't evince it at all, secondly, you need to keep your sense of humor. You need to do something that makes you laugh. In fact, you need to laugh. I wish I could end this broadcast with a joke. I can't. I'm very bad at telling jokes. And there really is nothing funny that I can think of. Nevertheless, what you need to do over the next couple of days, I ask you, actually, send me a joke. Will you do that? Send me a joke, and I will select the best joke. It could be a Trump joke, but it doesn't have to be a Trump joke. I'll select the best one, and I will use it tomorrow or the next day on the Resistance Report. All right, a somber Resistance Report tonight. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.